What's going on, everybody? Welcome to our second episode of Pilot Talk. I'm here today with Patrick. He's currently a private pilot and also a marketing guy and a podcaster. So Patrick, I'll let you introduce yourself to everybody and tell us a little bit about what you do.
Well, thanks, man. I appreciate it. It's exciting to be here on a Saturday morning, flying and all kind of technology stuff. I've run a marketing agency here in Oklahoma City for the past 20 years, and we do all kinds of cool digital marketing stuff. And it's finally when I started my own business that I had the lifestyle and the revenue that I needed to get into flying, which we're going to talk about here in a little bit. But I've basically been flying just about as long as I've had my business going, is what it is.
And guys, if you want a good podcast to listen to, something that's going to get you fired up, it's right here. It's Stop Doing Nothing. When I was doing my engineer work, I used to kind of tune in. I used to message you all the time like, hey, this is a good one. Yeah, it'll get you fired up. If you're thinking about flight training and you really don't know if you really want to take the leap, this man right here will get you fired up. I'll have that down in the description, and I'll also kind of have it down here in the corner, and y'all can go find that.
It's good stuff.
So Patrick, what brings us here today is obviously your interest in aviation. You flew here in a Cessna 172 today. It's a beautiful day for it, good day for an interview. What made you decide to begin flight training? I know you said that you had the means a little bit later once you had your marketing business, but what made you say, this is where I want to invest my money and time into?
I think for a lot of us, it began probably 20, 30 years ago when I was a kid. I lived in, my mom and I moved up to Ocean Shores, Washington, and we lived in an apartment complex that was like across the taxiway from the airport.
Oh, really?
There was like no fence or anything. It was like, we had to actually drive down part of the taxiway to get to our parking lot. And so I could look out my living room window and just like watch planes. It was a dream house for a pilot, but it wasn't technically, like one of those aviation neighborhoods.
Right, one of the flying neighborhoods.
Right.
Yeah.
And so at that point in time, once I actually got a part-time job there, and the Ocean Shores is what kind of kicked off the initial interest. Then I just had to have the lifestyle and obviously the revenue to do it. And I started that in the end of I think, like January, February of 1999 was my first logbook entry right there. So I had to carry that passion for a couple of decades. Had to actually go in and out of the Air Force where I never touched an airplane. But once I had everything has to sync up: the passion, the means, the location. Oklahoma is a great flying state, as you know. All that synced up, and finally, I think in January, February of '99, I walked over to Wiley Post Airport and found a flight school and said, "Let's get to work."
And that kind of goes to say too that once you start getting introduced to this and you get a taste, it is an addiction, and it hits very, very quick. So be aware, if you go out for a test flight or an intro flight, you very well could get addicted. And I know you said that you were right there on a taxiway, so this one probably might not apply to you, but it very well still could. Whenever you were getting into it and you were like, all right, I'm about to go out and get my first hour in the airplane, was there any negative connotations that you had of okay, I figured this is going to be too hard, I figure this is going to be kind of a bad learning curve, I figure, anything that you were kind of worried about going into it that might not be as bad that people might be worried about?
I think the thing, see, I'm a computer guy, so I was flight simming well before I ever got inside my first cockpit. So, and we're talking like old school TRS 80s, like horrible resolution flight sim stuff. So I learned the basics of lift, weight, thrust, drag from the internet, from YouTube videos. I'm not even sure. No, it wasn't YouTube when I was getting into it. But just I did a lot of book stuff and computer stuff before I did it. So that's the actual flying part didn't concern me. I think probably more than anything else, I was probably nervous about comms. Talking. I mean, I always figured that you're pressing a button and you're talking to like 1,000 people, and if you make a mistake, there's some pilot, some 747 pilot just laughing his butt off at you if you misstep something. So, and that was kind of a misconception, because right now I'm very comfortable on the radio. But going into it, I think if I was nervous about anything, that would have been it, yes.
And that also kind of brings up another good point too. And a lot of y'all out there, y'all might be in the middle or starting flight training and worried about it. I've been a flight instructor for a while now, commercial pilot for quite a while. I still screw up on the radio all the time. And you get tongue-tied. Sometimes someone might ask you to repeat something back, and you're like, yeah, oh no, what did he just say? And the airline guys do it on frequency too. So I mean, if you're at that point and you're like, oh man, I'm starting a cross country, I'm really worried about it, just go have fun and learn. Literally everyone gets tongue-tied. Yeah. We're all human.
I think when we were here, for example, I was coming in the pattern and I was giving all my calls, but I wasn't leaving in like the left or the right, which is kind of important when people want to know where you are.
That's right.
A couple of times. And so I'd key to get them left, Left is what I meant there, everybody.
So did you have any fears going into it? You know, like as far as like, oh no, if the engine stops, the plane's gonna fall, or if I stall, the plane's gonna fall, or did you have any fears? And if you did have any fears, you know, what overcame those?
Probably, we talked about the calm a little bit, and probably, yeah, the fear I had is, you know, just a kind of a common fear that I couldn't pick up from book knowledge is, you know, what happens when the engine stops? Do we just eat the ground for all intents and purposes? And so once I discovered the concept and I really put into practice lift, weight, thrust, drag, and I realized as long as you've got the good airflow, prop or not, you're not going to fall out of the sky as long as you do what you're supposed to do. So probably took me a few lessons to get over that. And, you know, I'm sure we're going to get into a little bit more, but landings and takeoffs, probably landings more than anything else. I think really good pilots, or you can tell me, I've heard really good pilots, you know, they make their money on the landing and the takeoff. The flying's easy. The plane just goes if you get it in the air, but the landing and the takeoff are what'll you know, kind of screw you up. And so I remember in my training a lot, it took me a lot to get my landings and takeoffs perfect. And once I got over that, I was okay. The flying part's easy.
I think more or less for the landing thing, you know, taking off, it's the anticipation of not knowing what to expect. Once you put that throttle forward, because you're like, okay, now it's real, now we're going. And then I think once you get in the air, you're like, oh, okay, this is actually kind of comfortable. And then the landing part, and I can attest to this with a whole bunch of students that I've had, they see the runway coming at them depending on what aircraft you're flying. In a Cessna 150 with the flaps down, it looks like it's barely moving. But, you know, if you're in a bigger plane or a faster plane like a Mooney, you know, that ground's coming towards you really quick, and people have the tendency to kind of tense up. And then that whole bad, you know, habit of driving the plane, you know, starts to happen because we drove to the airport. We're used to the steering wheel.
Exactly.
And I think once you're kind of over those and you just kind of fly by the numbers, it's just a really repeatable process, you know.
And just getting comfortable, I think, with how wind works and how wings work. You know, for example, I took off at Guthrie, and inevitably in Oklahoma, we're going to have wind. And so when I took off at Guthrie, what's the first thing that happens? Get off the ground, all of a sudden, the wind's moving me right off the runway, and I got to get back in the wing. And so the traffic knows where I am. So I think we also have a little bit more of a challenge flying here in Oklahoma, because you have to get really good at compensating your flying for the wind.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. This is a baptized by fire state for flying. If you ever want to learn how to fly in really bad winds, this is the state to do it in. And then everywhere else you go, it's honestly, you feel weird because you don't feel like you're doing anything when you're flying. I mean, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
That's a good thing.
Yeah, I've flown in California. I've flown over the Van Nuys, LA area where I grew up, and I had to take off out of Van Nuys and fly over the city, and I'm like, there's no place to land. And when you're in LA and you have engine trouble, it's mountains, it's beach, and it's apartments. So I love Oklahoma for the, like you said, the wind, the baptized by fire, but also the fact that we just have so much available land here too.
Yeah, that whole Carrie Underwood thing, there's not enough wind in Oklahoma, that's a lie. Yeah, that was a lie. So I know that you're a private pilot. Are you planning on going into instrument?
I'm going to do most of my time in my logbook. Because I'm not going to do this as a career, I don't think I'm going to get maybe my full instrument. But what I've done is I've done a lot of book study and computer study on how, you know, ILSs work and glide slopes and localizers, and I get the concept. It's just I don't think I'm ever going to go for the full certification, the full training. Every now and then, if I have some time, what I'll do, like if I'm landing over at Wiley Post or something, is I'll tune the ILS frequency also while I'm landing, even though I'm not, you know, technically authorized to use it, and I'll watch how it works practically, so I know. Because every now and then I'll fly and I'll get into some clouds. I've left Oklahoma City before to Arnold and come back and the city was overcast.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it happens, and I'm just flying around looking for holes in the clouds.
Oh yeah.
So I want to know the basics I need to know in case of an emergency, but I probably won't get a full IFR certification.
So if you're not going to go for your instrument, you obviously had to go all the way through your private pilot, though. So looking back through your private pilot training, what do you remember as being like the most exciting, most fun, like your best part of flight training? Because there's a lot of people that watch this that are in the middle of their flight training, and there's a lot of people that I teach and a lot of people that have asked me questions that are pre-solo, pre-cross country, and they're like, oh, this is just a grind, this is kind of repetitive.
Yeah.
So give them something to look forward to. What was the funnest, like the best part of your private pilot training?
I think if you're someone who likes to travel and you like to go out for adventure, having control over the process is what I find kind of pretty cool. For example, there are a lot of ways to get from Guthrie to El Reno, which is where I flew today. I can get up in an airplane, I have complete control of when and where I leave, and I can go I can take any path I want. You can't do that in a car or a motorcycle or hiking. You've got to take the path, you've got to take the road. With an airplane, I can say, I want to go left, I want to go right, I want to go up, I can go any direction I want. As a matter of fact, if you look at my flight track here, I was so busy, and this is a really common problem with me, I was so busy looking at outdoors and land, looking for my house. Like, my flight track wasn't a straight line here. I got off track, like, we got to get back on track kind of thing. Because
I think that's kind of the whole fun thing about VFR, though, right? Yeah. Because if you want to go see something over there, then I'm going to go check it out.
Exactly.
You know? Yeah, that's probably my favorite part of it.
Yeah, we in this area here, we have Lake Hefner and a couple other lakes, and every now and then if I see something cool at a lake and there's no other traffic in the area, I'll ask controllers for like a 360 so I can go see like a boat or something that's going on in the lake. Or every now and then if we have a wildfire, I'll go loop around that to see what's going on.
Yeah, we have absolutely been, we have definitely asked for some lower altitudes over Lake Hefner to go kind of, circle the sailboats and kind of see everything that's going on out there. So you mentioned that you might not be going all the way through IFR. You might decide to do it, you know, one day. Have you met your pilot career goals as of right now, besides the fact that as a pilot you literally want to learn something every day? You're constantly learning. The smart pilot is always learning. They're always trying to disseminate information from more experienced people, from flight instructors, from people that might have had an issue that you haven't run into yet. And in aviation, I kind of feel like it's not if, it is when that something kind of rears its ugly head that you might have to deal with. What else would you like to try to go forward and do? Is there any type of high altitude stuff in case you want to see, where you hit your hypoxia state, or, any type of acrobatic stuff? Where's your training goals at as of today in 2022?
I want to first of all emphasize something you just said, is every single flight I try to do something different. So I get a little bit more experience. It's been a while since I've landed at El Reno, so this was a good challenge for me here. That was very important. I think, I'm going to call it my bucket list. I think my goal right now is I've got some business partners in Santa Barbara, and I've checked out renting a plane in Santa Barbara and doing the down the coast trip and going out to Catalina Island.
That's Highway 1?
Highway 1 or Highway 5, yeah. Highway 1 is Pacific Coast Highway, and I grew up in that area out there. And in all my flight sim stuff now, I'll fly out of Van Nuys or LAX or Burbank or someplace. Well, Van Nuys and Burbank are the same airport. And I'll go out over the water, and I'll get up as high as I can, and I'll fly out to Catalina Island. And that's my goal sometimes. So I've talked to some flight schools in Santa Barbara and say, what is it going to cost for me to rent a plane and an instructor to go out there? I'll pay for the instructor's lunch. But that is kind of a big thing on my bucket list. As soon as I get out there for business, is to stay over a weekend and fly out to Catalina Island.
Yeah, that would be absolutely beautiful for one thing. So what were your biggest challenges as far as flight training? And what I mean by this, and I asked Adam the same thing, and I think we can all kind of attest, we all have similar challenges when it comes to, consistency in the airplane, scheduling. And I had mentioned to Adam too, a lot of flight schools will let you pay as you go. A lot of people try to put some budget back so they can, okay, I have this much, that's this many hours, I can stay consistent over a certain amount of time, because it's better to be in the aircraft consistently than it is to, because you do lose this. It's like another language. If you're not using it, you can 100%. Regress on your proficiency and your skill, and that's something that as pilots we discuss a lot. What were your biggest challenges as far as moving through your training? Anything like that kind of...
Yep. So when I said I started my pilot training about the time I started my business. My business involved a lot of travel, commercial travel. I'm not sure that was the best time to start pilot training, because I would be in the city for a week or two. I could fly every single day for a couple of hours, no problem. Then I would travel on business for 2 or 3 weeks and not touch a cockpit at all. And I sit down with an instructor, and sometimes it would even be a different instructor, because there's a little bit of churn in the instructor world, and I'd come back to my flight school and they'd be like, oh, Bobby left, he went to the airlines, here's Joe. So it might be a new plane, Patrick's out of practice, and I'm learning the personality of a new instructor. And so it took me, I think your minimum was 40 hours still. So to get it, I probably got my license probably a lot later, like 60 or 70 hours, but a lot of it was due to the travel. I would just, and admittedly, when I was on business trips, I would try to take lessons when I was on my business trips. Probably the biggest thing is the consistency, like you mentioned. If I would ever take a week or 2 or 3 a break, sometimes a couple of months, come back, I would have to learn stuff all over again. So it really emphasized, like you said, if you're going to do this and you've got the budget, commit to consistency. And whenever, you finish up one flight, plan the next one. Don't say, oh, I'll call you in a couple of months. Get the next one on the books as soon as possible.
Absolutely, yeah. And I know that a lot of the people that, because we do have people that come in from out of town. We've even had quite a few people come in from out of state.
Wow.
Just because of the availability of an instructor. Sometimes even if you're ready to go, the instructor's not. So try to pair up with somebody that understands, get that schedule, get that expectation out. Like, hey, if you're not the instructor for me, or if this isn't the school for me and the plane availability is not for me, it's very important to find that, because honestly, like after you go post solo, everything kind of moves at a very rapid rate, because there is no limit to how quick you can get this, or how long you have to get it within a certain amount of time. Besides the being within your written test time limits, but. I think the consistency part and trying to figure out, okay, if I have this going on in life, can you make it work?
Exactly.
And if you can't, cut back on something, because flying's more important, guys.
100%.
Okay.
And I would also emphasize that if you can't get in the cockpit for one reason or another, find a way to book fly. Or find a way to, like, there were times where I'd hype, if I couldn't fit in a schedule and my instructor was flying somebody else, I would actually sometimes ask to sit in the back of the plane, just so I was in the environment and I could see and I could touch, even if I wasn't the one flying. And obviously I'm a big computer guy, so on my Mac I have X-Plane 11, which is a very realistic flight simulator. So if I'm not in the air, I'm trying to do something aviation related just to keep my head in that game.
Yeah, and I think we can all attest to there's nothing that replaces actual seat time, but keeping your mind fresh is a huge thing.
Yep.
So that kind of really segues us into the next question here. Looking back at the difficulties that you might have had, what would you have done different, if there is anything?
If I would have done different, one of the things I think I would have done different is when I knew I had downtime here in the city. So for me, in my particular case, budget wasn't an issue. I started up a business, I charged well, that wasn't a problem. I would have probably flown more often when I was here in the city, because there were times when I'd be in Oklahoma City and I wouldn't have anything to do, and I would fly like maybe once a week and I'd go out and travel again. If I would have known what I know now, I would have said, okay, instructor, let's knock out 4 or 5 flights this week.
Yep.
I'll pay you everything I need for me to, because that's what I think always helps me with my landings and my takeoffs and everything, is just the familiarity, just the rote. There was a while there, probably about 6 months ago, before 6 months ago, as I took another long break. But now that I'm back into it, and I was just telling Ryan this as I was pulling up, everything was a little bit rusty. But, my landing today was uneventful. I thought it was going to be a lot worse. And I think that just happens because I'm just back in the habit of things. So looking back, when I was in the city,
and
like
to be clear, the uneventful ones are the ones you want.
Exactly. Yeah, the uneventful ones. Like I landed today, I'm like, oh, I was here. And I have another good story about a landing in Tulsa about that. But yeah, just the consistency. I wish I would have stayed up on the consistency when I had the time.
Yeah. Yeah, and honestly, I can't emphasize this enough, guys. And even the FAA, as far as like with your private pilot's license, you have been through the check ride, you've been through the oral, the practical, the written test. There's still a recency requirement to even carry passengers, because the FAA wants us to stay recent too. Even the government knows that we have to do this, but as pilots, there has been a few times where I have taken a long break when I was in flight training, and it was almost like a foreign environment after 2 months. You get back in, you know what to do, but the muscle memory and that whole feeling kind of fades.
All the subtleties that make really good pilots when it comes to landing or takeoff or checklist, all those subtleties you lose, and you're back to like following the checklist and forgetting about some of the intrinsic or intuitive stuff when it comes to flying.
Absolutely. So I guess that kind of leads us to, we kind of talked about, what your hang-ups might have been for flight training, what you would have done differently. Just broad general advice for people out there that are flight training right now, or thinking about flight training.
Right.
Like from your experiences, what's your best piece? What's your best nugget of information, advice that you can give for the people out there?
Probably my best nugget would be if you have any fear about some of the dangers. I talked about having fear of the prop stopping or comm or stuff. All this stuff, I can tell you that my fears were really unwarranted. Whether it comes to me making a mistake on the radio or what happens when the prop stops. All those fears, after a while, when my instructor helped me, because it's always helpful to have a great instructor. When that fear went away, I was like, oh, okay, no problem there. It's easy. So there's just I mean, obviously we know there's a variety of things that can go wrong when you're in a plane, but I've had plenty of things go wrong, and for the most part, they were non-issues.
Yeah.
I took my mom's girlfriend up once, and like the door popped open on the flying. And it was because of my instructor that my instructor said, a door popping open is a non-issue. It will not prevent the plane from flying. Pull it shut, or hold it shut, land the plane, and get a wrench.
And that's generally the way you have to do it because the pressure difference in the airflow, and a lot of the planes you can't close once it's open. Once it's open, just land. You're not gonna get it closed.
And when I parked the plane here outside the lines, I thought this was totally bizarre. Like, I'm sure if they look over, like the passenger side door is open. So somehow I flew here, so talking about mistakes, I flew here with an unlocked passenger door, which was a complete numbness thing on my part. But
the landing wasn't so uneventful after all.
Oh, yeah. That's right. All the fears that you have, whether it's cons or things going wrong with the plane, these planes are built with so many redundancies. And it's just all my fears now, or all the major fears I hear people have. When I talk to non-pilots, I'm like, that's a non-issue. I stumble over my tongue all the time. Every now and then, my flaps may not work. Everything is a non-issue. Just, I would say, get in the groove of it, get with a good instructor like Ryan, and just definitely enjoy the process. If I had some other advice, that's something else I would give, is enjoy the process. Pilots are, in my opinion, very much a special breed. And,
absolutely.
And an airport is a sacred ground. When I come into an airport or I start smelling, 100 low lead, I'm like, this is my place and these are my people, and no one can understand us. So consistency, big issues are not really that big issues, and you're going to make some amazing friends, and there's an amazing pilot community whatever airport you go to.
I honestly couldn't have said it better. That was, yeah. So kind of like ending on like a good light note, although you just kind of knocked that one out of the park. What about your like best, funniest story so far at Aviation? Like, and I mean the whole broad spectrum. Like, what's the coolest, best, funniest, the best story you got for the people out there?
Oh my goodness!
Because you can attest to this. This life is random as far as aviation goes. And Adam, whenever we went to go pick up his Mooney, we were standing in Chickasha one day, and then at 4 o'clock in the morning, we were at Real Rogers, flying to Colorado to go bring that home from the mountains. Like, you just never know on a day-to-day when you wake up and you're like, you know what? I'm just gonna take it easy. Well, sometimes it'll take you for one heck of an adventure.
So not counting I've had a mistake here or there, not counting the super smooth landing I had once in Tulsa, and it's never happened again. I'd probably say my coolest story is when we've done up in Ponca City, that we've got the first Saturday fly-in. And what's really cool there is not only do I get to be around planes I've never seen before, but because we're all pilots and because we're all buddy, like I can sit in a variety of planes. Like in this fly-in we're talking about, like sometimes like Vance pilots will come down, and like I can get up and like sit in the cockpit of like a T-38 or something. The pilots will let me. So probably the variety of people I've gotten to meet and the variety of machines I've gotten to be around is just amazing. And I think a lot of that comes because, like I said earlier, we're a community. And if you're a military pilot and you're flying a C5 or something, and I'm a pilot, we're buddies. I'm not going to break your stuff. So you'll let me poke around the C5. You won't let me do touch and goes or anything, but you'll let me look inside the cockpit. And so just being able to see the variety of machines because I'm a pilot and because pilots have an implicit trust, I think is probably one of the highlights of my flying.
And I have actually had this conversation with a few people, between being military and being out. There's a big car community out there.
Right.
There's a lot of great people out there. When I came into aviation, you never really know what to expect out of a group of individuals, but I can officially say, even when I was out there, with the Oklahoma Aeronautical Commission up there at Guthrie, and I have not met, I don't think, honestly, one single person in aviation that has not just been like, come on, let me show you. Do you want to go check? Here's a $3 million plane. Go climb around in it. I have really never met a community anywhere in any niche that has just been like so welcoming and open arms as this, and it's a great group of people, guys. It really is. I can't even begin to tell you just how much information and knowledge you'll get, and people will love to give it to you. Because for one thing, pilots love telling people they're pilots. For one thing, I apologize to everyone out there that's thoroughly annoyed with me by now. But I mean,
two things you'll always learn about somebody. You'll always know when someone's vegan, and you'll always know when someone's a pilot.
that's pretty much the ones right there. If you could end this however you want, if there is anything that hasn't been said, anything that you might want to mention as far as, flight training, the experience, the life that is, aviation and the things that you've got to be involved in, is there anything else you want to close with?
Probably the one thing I would close with is if you're a technology person like I am, and I get the feeling that Ryan is pretty high tech on things.
I've been known to spend some money in this field.
Just $5 or $10 here or there he spends. I would say that a lot of the technical part of flying, or not the mechanical, not the tactile part of flying, but a lot of what I've learned from how instruments work, or how this switch does this, or how a Garmin or a G1000 works, how all that stuff works. In this day and age, between having an iPhone, an iPad, and an iMac, that I can learn a lot of that stuff outside of the cockpit.
Right.
And so I would say take advantage of the technology that you're going to use inside the cockpit. Take advantage of it outside the cockpit. So for example, when I'm sitting in my living room, I'm poking around in full flight, learning all kinds of stuff. If I was to do that inside the cockpit, it's very expensive. Inside the cockpit, when you've got a Ryan in there and you've got a twin going, it's very expensive to learn what a particular icon does in ForeFlight.
Absolutely.
But when I'm in my living room with my 2 cats and my big screen TV, it's very cheap for me to sit there and learn on ForeFlight how things work. And then by the time I get in the cockpit, I have that skill and I didn't have to pay so much for it. So take advantage of technology.
And honestly, now has been the safest time ever to fly. I mean, the situational awareness we have in the cockpits now, even with just an iPad and the ADS-B is a huge one. I bought my own a while back. I travel my own portable ADS-B now. Oh yeah, same. I've got one in my flight bag here. I'll be using here in about an hour. If there's any bad reservations about getting into this, guys, now has been the safest time to get into flying. There's always new safety regulations coming out. There's always new standards of situational awareness in the cockpit, and I had the same thing. A lot of those fears that I had of what could go wrong, and now that I've been flying for over 1,000 hours or so, it's just kind of been okay. Why did I even that's not even, it's, like you said, it's a non-starter. It's not even one of those things where you're so
one of the first stories I told Ryan when I landed today is coming from Guthrie here. It was a little bit of a bumpy takeoff at Guthrie. It was a little bit of a bumpy ride over here, and my adrenaline was on high alert as I came into land, and I was just trying to remember all my training, my rudder, center line, be prepared to go around, all that stuff. And I landed, and I was telling Ryan, I'm here. It was a non-issue. I was on final, and I could feel my heart rate going up on final. And once I followed everything, because we talked about the habit and stuff, it was a non-issue, and all that fear and attention I had flying over here just disappeared.
Yeah.
I was worried for nothing.
Yeah, and I mean, the more experience you have and the more consistent you stay, I feel like you can enjoy more of your outside world because you're not in your head so much, Patrick, I really, really appreciate you coming on today. Guys, this is only the second episode. We have a lot more people to bring on. We want to bring you guys that are doing this in the career. We want to bring you more students. We want to answer your questions too. If there's anything that's not being discussed in these, something that's just been kind of eating at you, you can't find the information that you need, leave a comment down below. People like Patrick love to come on here. Again, pilots talking about being pilots. It's something that's never going to have, we're never going to have a shortage.
We love ourselves. We love ourselves.
We're never going to have a shortage of things to talk about. So if there's questions that you're not getting answered that you really want to have answered, please, like I said, drop it down below, and we'll incorporate it into our questions that we have. And also, we're going to have Stop Doing Nothing listed down below. You can go check out his podcast. Like I said, it's great for motivation. It's great for kind of getting your mind working in the morning. If you're sitting there drinking a cup of coffee and you're like, how can I improve my day even by 1%? If 1% improvement every day is 365% a year, right?
There we go.
So if you're interested in that, I'll be sure to label it kind of down here in a box, and it'll be in the link description below. Go check him out. Also, be sure to check out our social medias. We'll have those in the description as well. And as always, guys, my name is Ryan, and I am reminding you, if it is beautiful and you just love flying, to get out and fly today. We'll see y'all in the next one.
See ya.